Last week, I shared a story about when I was first started investing. I had $10,000 to invest. I made a lot of mistakes in that first investment that I thought you might be able to learn from. But what would I do with $10,000 today? Stephen asked, if I was a kid, where would I invest my $10,000 today?
This video is for educational purposes only. It should not be considered investment, legal, or tax advice. It is not an offer to buy or sell any security. Past performance does not indicate future results. Investing is risky.
He asked for one company, but I'm not going to do one company. I think it's important for every person to do their own research and come to their own conclusions on which stocks, companies they like. If you just follow my advice, you're not going to be able to stick with something over time if you don't personally understand it and have high conviction in it. However, I did want to go ahead and answer this question, and I want to take a little bit of a spin on it. I want to come up with the 9 highest return on investment ways that I could think of to invest $10,000 right now. So in this video, we're going to look at the highest return on investments. The first has a 390,000% return on investment. Number 7 on my list isn't very well known. Number 4 and 5 are probably going to bore you. And then at the end of the video, I'm going to share with you how I would approach the investing the stock portion of the $10,000 with the 50-25-25 method. The first place I would invest my $10,000 would be at least partially in knowledge. I would put $500 into growing my knowledge base, and I would do that in a really specific way, and that is I would build a second brain. Tiago Forte has a course, a really popular course called How to Build a Second Brain, but I would build a second brain, at least starting with a book called How to Take Smart Notes. It's $10 on the Amazon store. I'll put a link in the description below, but this book quite literally has changed my life. And I'm not being overly dramatic when I say that, but I mean it. This book has changed my life. And it goes over the system of Nicholas Luhmann. He was a prolific writer. I think he wrote 70 books and hundreds of different academic articles. The man was just incredibly productive. So you might think someone like that, who produced that much content, must have just been an absolute genius. Well, they studied his life and determined that he was of normal intelligence. The only thing that really made him special, and he admitted as much, was his note-taking system. Luhmann had an incredible ability to take things that he was reading from various sources and make his own ideas out of seemingly disparate thoughts. So he would read a book, take notes on it, and then he would add those notes in his own words to his library of existing notes, and he would make connections between the different ideas. So for example, he might conclude that a concept from physics, like gravity or something, would also connect with the stock market. So maybe you'd say, in the stock market, an asset that is in motion continues to stay in motion until acted on by an outside force. That would be kind of an example of taking two unrelated thoughts and making your own out of those. So Luhmann did this with tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of different note cards, and he used those note cards to create a second brain that he could interact with and forming new ideas and capturing knowledge that would have otherwise been lost. And this is why this is number 1 on my list, because if you're watching this video, chances are you're just starting out on your investment journey. You're obviously accumulating more knowledge by watching my video, and I'm sure others on investing. So the best thing you can do right now is to capture those ideas. So if I share an idea that you think is useful to your future, it would benefit you tremendously to jot down that in your note-taking system and develop your own investment system based on those ideas. It would be your system based on the accumulated ideas that you gather from all kinds of different sources, but you cannot do that effectively unless you have a good note-taking system or a good process for capturing your ideas and putting them down on paper somewhere. So I would start, my first $10 would be to buy this book, read it cover to cover. Then I would get a Kindle. And the reason is that the Kindle allows you to read a lot and, more specifically, take exact notes easily, and those can flow right into your system. I use Obsidian for mine. You can use something else. And I also use Readwise, which links my Kindle notes to my Obsidian notes. But this package overall would be about $200 in the first year. And I think this is the absolute foundation for all future knowledge of investing or any other topics. I would invest the other 300 of the 500 into books. I would try to read at least one book per month on the Kindle. I would also get an Audible subscription. If you want to help support the channel, I'll put a link in the description below. But I personally subscribe to the Audible Plus, which is you get, I believe it's one audiobook per month. So overall, this would be about 2 books per month that you'd be able to read, capture all of your notes in your note-taking system, and you would quickly be able to build a lot of knowledge about investing or your job. There's so many ways that this could benefit you. Just even spending 1 year reading books, taking detailed notes, and putting things in your own knowledge building system would help you generate an extra, say, 1% per year on your investment. So if you just invested $1,000 a month for 30 years and earned a 7% return instead of a 6% return, you would get $185,000 extra at the end of 30 years. If you just took that divided by the $500 you invested, that would be a 369,000% total return on your $500 investment in knowledge. The number 2 place I would invest $10,000, I would set aside $2,000 to invest in skills. I subscribe to a couple places. I subscribe to Brilliant and Skillshare. Brilliant is, neither one of those sponsors this video. I just like their services. Brilliant is all about increasing your math, engineering, basically any kind of technical skills. You can build those with Brilliant. They have coding classes. Skillshare has a lot of different courses. One's from Ali Abdaal, which I really like, on video editing. So that's one. And then just e-courses in your specific field, or maybe in increasing your productivity or something like that. Higher skills mean higher wages for you in the future. And if you're young and just starting out, there's nothing better, aside from gaining knowledge, there would be nothing better than to increase your skills to earn more money in the future. That's going to make a huge difference to your future investment results. So let's say you're just able to earn an extra $5,000 per year from these higher skills. I would bet you'd earn a lot more than that, but let's just say that for 30 years, not even assuming you invest them, $150,000 divided by the $2,000 investment, again, I think is a multi-$1,000 return on your investment. So focus on knowledge, focus on higher skills. Those things are going to unlock your future trajectory of both income and your ability to grow that income via higher investment returns. The third place I would put it is in an employer match. If your employer offers you a 4% match in your 401k and you put in 4%, so on $50,000 salary, that'd be $2,000 a year, you would get a $2,000 return from your employer matched 1-for-1. That is a 100% return on investment. Plus you're going to get whatever the investment gains are. So this is the best financial return on investment that you can get. That would be the third place I would put it. Number 4 is term life insurance. This may not be applicable to everyone watching the video. If you're just starting out, probably isn't. If I was like 22 years old and had no family and no obligations, I would not have insurance, because if I died, no one's going to starve to death without my salary at that point. But in my position, I'm 32, I'm married with 3 kids, and my wife stays at home with them. So if I were to pass away unexpectedly, that leaves her in a world of hurt. Protect your loved ones. If something were to happen to you, would anyone else be in a significantly worse financial position? And if the answer is yes, then you need to protect them with some term life insurance. It's as inexpensive as you can get. You can meet with an agent to talk about how much you might need. But in this case, the ROI is probably, hopefully, going to be negative. I hope my life insurance premiums that I pay for the next 20 years are going to be negative, that I will never need them. But it could potentially be a hugely positive thing for my loved ones and offset a tragedy. So it's potentially massive ROI, and it reduces a lot of emotional strain, financial strain on your loved ones. So protecting them would be a huge priority. The fifth thing I would do is take $1,000 at least, maybe more, and put it into an emergency fund. This is the most boring item on the list, but it could potentially save you from a lot of financial distress. And the reason I've got it here is having $1,000 set aside can get you out of a lot of pinches. Maybe your tire goes flat or something like that happens. And rather than putting $1,000 on the credit card and incurring a 20% annual cost on that, you'll have it sitting around ready for any kind of emergency. I think that's a good starting spot. Over time, I'd try to build that to 3 to 6 months worth of spending, maybe more, depending on what kind of industry you're in, how volatile you think your earnings could be. The reason I would keep this just in cash and not invest it is that in a bad situation, most likely is going to coincide with a bad market. So let's say you lose your job or something. If you lost your job, that means the economy probably isn't doing very well. If the economy isn't doing well, that means the stock market's not doing well. So if you were to, say, invest your entire emergency fund, then the stock market is probably going to go down at about the exact same time that your need goes up. And if your emergency fund is in the stock market and it goes down, well, now you're going to have to sell your emergency fund at losses probably. So maybe the stocks are down 20 to 50%, and you now need to sell your stocks in order to cover this emergency. So by having it in cash, you could save yourself potentially the 20% credit card cost plus, let's say, up to 50% in a unfortunate market crash. So I'm just going to say between 20 and 70% potential ROI. Again, hopefully you'll never need to use it and it will be a 0% ROI, but you'll be glad you have it if you need it in the future. So that leaves us with $5,000. So with this $5,000, we want to now look at what are the kind of best places to invest this money to earn the highest return we can. And the first place is paying off credit cards. I don't know why you would ever invest at, say, 7% potentially in the stock market, sometimes more, sometimes less, but while paying 20%, if you are paying anything over, say, 5%, it is basically like getting a guaranteed return to pay that off. So if you have 20% credit card debt, you're basically anything you put towards that credit card is earning a guaranteed 20%. So that makes all the sense in the world to pay those down. Other debt, lower interest is probably okay. So mortgage at 3.5%. Could you earn more than 3.5%? In the stock market, I personally think yes. So I have a mortgage at 3.5%. If this were, say, 7, and I didn't think stocks could produce more than 7, I would probably pay that off. But definitely anything in the double digits plus probably should be paid off. Number 7 isn't widely known, but a health savings account in the United States can be a great place to put money, save taxes. You can get an immediate tax refund on any money that you put into an HSA, and you should talk to someone before you open one. You have to meet certain requirements with your health insurance, high deductible plan, things like that. So talk to someone about this, but if you can open one and put money into it, you can get an immediate tax refund on whatever you put in, just like a traditional IRA. You also earn tax-free growth on that. So if you invested that in something and earned interest, you would get tax-free growth there. And then if you're using it for health expenses, you also get tax-free withdrawals. So this is kind of like the best of both a traditional IRA and a Roth IRA all into one package. And all of us are going to have health expenses at some point in our lives. So this can be a smart investment for you and your family. We have one and really love it. Number 8 is real estate. I don't know too much about real estate, but this can be an effective way to build wealth if that's something that you have a talent for or interested in. But I personally, any money after doing all those kind of 1 through 8 investments and getting your financial footing is the stock market. And if I had a little bit of money left over after putting the $10,000 to work in other more important places, I would probably do something that I'll call the 50-25-25 method. My focus for this strategy isn't necessarily to earn the best rates of return. My objective here would be to learn as much as possible. You're not going to make it on just investing 10,000. You're going to have to invest multiple tens of thousands over your lifetime. So the first 10,000 is a great place to learn. So the focus here is on education and learning. Mistakes are okay, even encouraged, if it means you avoid making mistakes in the future. So the 50 part of that equation, I would do 50% just in a broad market index fund, maybe like a total stock market index. VTI is a good one in the United States, or maybe a VEU if you want non-US exposure. VT combines both US and non-US. And the reason I would do 50% index funds is it just gives you something to compare it to. So if you put 5,000 in index funds and then you realize that those are doing way better than the other half of your money, you'll kind of start to see maybe I shouldn't do the other 50%. Maybe index funds are the best place for me. Conversely, maybe you find that the other 50 does really well and you have multiple 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years where the other 50 is doing better than your index funds. Then maybe you'd start to say, hey, maybe I should do something else that's been working for me on the other side. Speaking of the other side, I would put 25% to what I would call scratch the itch, which is the focus here is on learning. And what I mean by itch is basically the things that you are personally extremely compelled by. Maybe you are an avid believer in Bitcoin or Tesla or something that you just have this itch that you want to invest in this particular asset or investment, whatever it may be. This is your itch. Maybe you want to explore some crazy strategy where you're day trading or something, just kind of maybe not the smartest long-term idea, but something that's a little more speculative that satisfies your need. Some people might call this play money, but it's a place for you really to focus on making mistakes with a little bit of money. That way you avoid making mistakes with a lot of money. So rather than putting everything you've got into Bitcoin or some other crazy strategy, instead you can try to just minimize the damage of what I think probably is going to be a bad investment, but that's just me. But anyways, you can learn a lot from that. And the other 25% I would put in what I would call the coffee can. Now the coffee can idea I will talk more about in another video, but the idea with the coffee can portion of your portfolio is to pick businesses, stocks that you think you would want to hold for the rest of your life. So I would probably pick, say, 30 companies that you would want to own forever, and then I would not touch them for at least a decade. And the reason why I think this strategy is important from a learning perspective is that it will teach you that stocks are businesses. And if you truly did this, I think you'll find that of those 30 companies that you buy, how the stock does is going to be very closely linked with how the business does. So it gets you thinking about stocks as businesses, which is what they are. This also would give you a little bit of experience picking stocks. And I think you might be surprised at how well this would do after a decade. There's probably going to be, say, half of your list that goes down or just doesn't do anything at all. Maybe 10 of these stocks would do decently well, and then you might have 5 that just did incredibly well and may even pay for the entire portfolio and then some. So this is just an interesting idea that I think, again, gets your focus on learning that stocks are businesses and not just pieces of paper. I hope that's helpful to you. If you have any other questions, I'd love to hear from you in the comment section down below. Have a great day.